hear me? Cool. So how you want to do this? You just gonna do it like just loose conversational style? You gonna throw in bumper music? Like how are you thinking about doing it? You got it all set up that way? Oh yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, well, sounds about right, eh? Can you hear me still? Okay, cool. All right. Yeah, I'm wondering why you're not coming through my headphones here and you're just coming through the computer speakers instead. What the fuck's going on? Oh, there you are. Uh, Gotcha. All right.
There we go. You know what? I wasn't on the live stream. I was just on the
I thought
Telegram chat.
are we am I later again or weren't we supposed to start at 8?
No, you know what? It's all confused. We're roughly correct. I think I
Cool.
said 8. You know what? Time zones confuse me. I'm not a time zone Chad, a time zone cell. I'm more of a
Time tard.
I'm a time tard. That's right.
Cool. All right, man.
Well, all right. Let's tell them why we decided to do this.
Why did we decide to do this?
Well, we were talking after the Great White West, and
Yep.
we got to talking about some spooky occurrences that had happened to us, and you had some really good ones. And so we're like, oh man, and we were talking about Art Bell and how we'd like to do an old style call-in show, especially for October and whatever. So that's what we're doing. Simple as.
Yeah, Halloween theme.
Oh yeah, it looks like our viewer count isn't updating. I can see we got two or three people in the chat, and I know other people are watching, and it's showing 2 viewers. That's just they don't want us to know. They don't want anyone to know the truth. They're suppressing us already,
Yeah, that's right. We're being suppressed.
perhaps by the reptilians, perhaps by the little hat men. Hopefully, we'll get some answers to that from your guys' tales of the paranormal this evening.
Well, I think that there'll probably be a lot of people out there with a story to tell as well. And we were hoping that we get a few callers in tonight. I
Yeah,
mean, usually everyone's got some sort of tale.
absolutely. So if anyone does want to call in, we'll take you one at a time. Um,
Yeah, we were talking to somebody just before the show here, and he didn't think he had anything to talk about, but it turns out he was a flat Earth believer. So, I mean, that's that's pretty intense. That's quite conspiratorial in its own right. Conspiratorial stuff, I think, is fits the milieu a little bit, especially if we're surrounded by a gigantic ice wall like Game of Thrones or something. I think it's
absolutely.
something people want to know about,
All right.
or if the Earth is hollow.
Wait, we got listeners all over the place. Okay, so just to clarify the format here, we're on YouTube right now. Most of you know
Oh,
that.
are we?
Yes, that's where we're streaming to. We're also on a Telegram group. We'll prefer to talk to you through the Telegram group for these calls. That'll keep everything simple. But it is possible also, I've got a Skype meeting open. And if anyone in the chat wants that in the YouTube chat or whatever, I will post a link in there. I'm going to probably change it quite frequently just in case, just to keep the glowies out. Um, you know what you do if you see a glowy on the side of the road, right? You'll
No, what do you do?
uh, you do the Terry Davis method. That's what I'm getting at.
Oh, I see. So hey, just while we're talking here, there's just no way to minimize the chat window in Telegram, is there, so that you can see like you know Safari pages or something like that? Because I had a whole bunch of links all lined up just as a reference, but well, I can't seem to leave this chat without or minimize it anyways without leaving it. Do you know anything about that?
No, if you can still hear me, then I'm minimized and live. That's a hmm. You know what? Well, I'll take a caller. You can drop out and start posting the links, and we'll be good. We'll do it that way.
Okay, great.
Oh, well, I see Klein in the chat right now. Klein, did you have a story you wanted to tell, or are you just listening today? We'll get back to him. We'll take any callers anytime. If not, maybe I'll start out. I had a story submitting, let's say by mail, not really, but I was talking to my uncle that we were going to be doing this, and he told me one that I guess happened to my grandpa in about 1948 when he was working on the phone lines around Saskatchewan. So everyone would invite him in for coffee, and that was just standard fare. He'd go fix their phone and then sit down, have some coffee. There was a single mother, which was extremely peculiar for the time. She had a little boy that's sitting there, and he's drawing this round ship and these weird-looking men on a paper. So my grandpa asked him, the little boy, "What are you drawing there?" And he's like, and his mom was trying to hush him, but he's like, "Yeah, these are the people we saw. These are the people we saw." And he asked him some more questions. Anyway, that's actually the entirety of the story. But
Hey, I figured out how to do that.
Okay, you got your technology sorted out there, Eald?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Excellent, man. Well, yeah, I mean, that sort of thing wasn't talked about in a lot of, and people just thought you were absolutely bonkers, especially back in the 40s, if you mentioned stuff like that.
yeah. And do you think attitudes have changed?
Well, I would say yes, because I actually have had, um, I wouldn't say extensive, but I've had encounters, UFO encounters that everything from just the passing lights in the sky to the downright up close and terrifying at moments. And for a long time, I would, the when you have an encounter that's pretty amazing, your first inclination is to want to tell it to people. And for the longest time, people would just say you're crazy. They didn't believe me. They thought I was making it up, even though that's not the that's not really my disposition. I'm not really a bullshitter or a storyteller that way. But people, it's one of those things that you almost have to see to believe. And so for a long time, I just said, fuck it. I'm just not going to tell these stories, because I don't want to, nobody wants to be called a liar all the time. But over the last 10 years or so, I've certainly noticed that people would bring up these sort of topics to me. And they're people who've had their own sort of encounters as well. So I think it's becoming a lot more prevalent.
That doesn't, yeah, that would also be my inclination. I haven't heard any in a few years, and I think it's because of my demeanor. If you go about in the world and you seem like kind of a serious guy, people are maybe less inclined to get close to you and tell you these. But back when I was drinking, or back and working in kitchens and stuff, and more friendly, I'd hear these every week. I'd hear a story.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, let's get
go on.
back to that topic. I think we got an actual bona fide caller who wants to pop in.
Great, bring him on in.
Oh, no, maybe he's bailing. No, we got juked.
Yeah, I think that it's becoming a lot more prevalent. Like, As a matter of fact, on Telegram, if there are any Telegram users out there in the audience, I actually am part of a few groups that I mean, some of them are, that there's the standard sort of group that gets together, that gets full of lunatics that post a lot of fake and doctored stuff, and then you got to kind of sort the bullshit from the actual really good footage, and
Definitely.
just sort of ignore the clamor. And then there's another group out there one's called Alien Agenda, and it's got a sister group called I forget what it's called. I could have a quick look, but anyhow, they're a little bit more serious. They tend to only post stuff that has like uh credible witnesses, bona fide, evidence and stuff. And there is a growing body of actual physical evidence in this field as well. I mean, when you look at the work of Dr. Roger Lear, he was taking implants out of people. Unfortunately, he died.
What sort of
Um,
implants?
like implant. Well, that was the thing, right? Is people would come to him and say, "Oh, I've had an abduction history. I remember they put something in my leg or whatever, or my knee, or it's usually in the lower body for some reason." And so he was some sort of a surgeon, that a foot surgeon or something. He was like a surgeon though, and he started taking them out of people, and he started noticing that there was some really strange properties of these implants. Like when they would have them, they would be somewhere, and then he would go to make an incision to remove it, and the thing would not be that where it was supposed to be. Like they would actually move to another location. And then what they did is they had some of it analyzed, um, with to see what the composition was, and most of it was made of meteoric iron with ultra rare elements in it, like things that you wouldn't even consider in a modern manufacturing setting. You know what I mean? So when they put it under a micron, or what do you call those
Electron
microscopes that go
microscope?
down to, like, yeah, electron microscopes, if they found that the structures were actually look like they were it was nanotechnology that far exceeded anything modern industrial humanity could achieve at the moment. So it really cool stuff, and he was really on a roll, and he had patients going out the door who wanted these things removed. And he died suddenly of a heart attack, but he had a history of illness and stuff. So, I mean, it's not, don't be so
Mm-hmm.
quick to jump to a conspiratorial angle on this. I think he was diabetic as well. And yeah, and he had heart attacks before. So, yeah, and he died, unfortunately, right in the midst of this work. So, hopefully, somebody else is picking up the torch where he left off, because the evidence that he was accruing was absolutely bona fide and really hard to explain away.
It's fascinating. I'd love to see some of what he has documented and see some pictures of this.
Yeah, there's a PDF out there that he released. I think there's a website that he had as well, documenting this as he went along. And yeah, it's like 30 pages of like just scientific results, like, micron or electron, what do you call it?
Electron
Electron
microscope.
microscope. Yeah, and different compositional, like he'd send it out for labs to have the compositions tested and everything like that. I don't know much about that kind of industrial science, but
Cool.
um,
Let's let
people who do,
people who do have
people who
verified
do,
it.
yeah, well, they've definitely given him results, that could be interpreted one way or another, right?
That's excellent. That really tingles the old brain stem. Let's
Yeah, Lier, Lier, not Lear. It's a different Lear spelling.
we'll maybe add a link here soon. Let's let Klein into the call here. Klein, can you hear us?
Hello, loud and clear.
Nice, nice. Okay, well, you're live on the air. Do you have a good paranormal story for us?
I do. Had to put on my tinfoil hat real good. How's my audio, by the way? Am I too loud or too
No,
quiet?
you sound good.
Yeah,
Perfect.
good here.
So this is about 7 years ago in the city that I live in now, which is a small city in the prairies. And I pursued this story to the best of my ability at the time, and it's over time become just something that I have accepted that I will never truly understand. So one night, I had this routine of where I go to the gym usually between 11:30 at night and come home around 1:30, 2 in the morning. So as I did, I come home, I'm looking at the stars, and there was just a beautiful, super clear sky out. Everyone's lights were off, the street lights were dim, could see the sky clear as day, and the weather was like 25 degrees Celsius, so it was just a beautiful summer day. And once I got back to my house, I was still just kinda admiring the stars, and I was like, "This is really beautiful." So I decided to just lay on the grass and kick my feet up. As I was, staring at the sky, I just kinda felt like, like it was just a weird phenomenon. It was, like, extra clear, and, from the corner of my eye after laying there for about 25 minutes and, yeah, you had, like, your normal, like, shooting stars and your satellites, but all of a sudden and I should preface this with I don't believe in UFOs at all. I believe in, like, spirits and all that stuff, but I don't believe in UFOs, but there was a figure of lights in a triangle formation with each tip of the triangle looking like a star, a normal star of the sky, but it was a fixed shape, and it zigzagged through the sky, and I got up to observe this thing, like, in a shock, and, I just saw this thing zigzagging through the entire sky at crazy speeds, like, abhorrent speeds, until it flew right over me and my house and just kept going, and, once it was directly above me, the absolute size of this thing was just insane. Like, I couldn't gauge the distance. It was completely silent, no noise, and it just left. And, out of panic, I knew this one guy who I followed some of his, writings or whatever, who was also a massive tinfoil hat man. I if I remember correctly, his name was Ben Saunders, and I wrote him an email asking him, like, "This is what I saw at this time on this date in the clear skies of this area." I was like, "Do you have any answers?" And he did get back to me, and he's like, "Yeah, the United States military has stuff like that. I wouldn't worry about it." And I just was like, "Okay, I guess." I had nothing further than that, and it's just
The United States military has vessels that can move silently at supersonic speeds and zigzag patterns in the air.
according to him. That's why I said it's just one of those mysteries for me.
I feel like they'd have been able to beat Afghanistan if that was the case, but maybe they keep it deeper under wraps than that. I do believe you saw what you saw. What was the feeling you had in the moment of seeing it?
Doubt. I questioned myself. I was like, "There's no way that this is happening right now," but it was. Kinda
Yeah, I've
like,
seen oh, sorry, go on.
oh, no, no, I was just gonna make a out of taste joke.
Well, I've seen, the glowing orb types, and I've seen the silver disc types, but I've never seen the black triangle shapes. I've never seen the cigar shapes that people often see. So it's interesting, always interests me to hear about the, black triangles, for sure.
The Black Triangle is famous from that Arizona sighting, isn't it?
Well, absolutely, yeah. I mean, that was a mass sighting, right? Like, those ones are really hard for them to hand wave away when you get people seeing it from taking phone footage of it from, like, 30 different locations across, a huge urban area. Yeah, it's pretty amazing, and apparently that one was huge. Like, how big was the one that you saw? Would you estimate?
Ridiculous, like, absolutely unbelievable size. 'Cause it was, The gym I went to was about a kilometer and a half away, 2 kilometers away. You couldn't see it from my house, but you could see the sky from that far away. And seeing it approach was like a small triangle, but overhead was like took up a few city blocks.
Yeah, that's what I hear too, is like they're just like keeping something that size in the sky is hard to it's hard to explain all on its own, right? Because the principles of aeronautics just go right out the window at that point, especially when they're moving at slow speeds or ridiculous speeds and making hairpin turns or left-hand turns and things.
Yeah, I am all questions and I have 0 answers.
Well, I after I had a few encounters, like I said, I'm going to bust out the stories in a little bit, but um, I read everything I could get my hands on, right? And I mean, when you dip into this field, there's everything from the new age ridiculous to the ultra scientific, everything in between, right? Like, and I must have read 100 books. I mean, I just read and read and read and read. I thought, man, I'll get to the bottom of this. And what happens is you come out the other end even more spun out and confused than when you went in. It's fucked up.
Well, do you think there's any danger to pursuing these sorts of questions?
Well, are you talking to me?
I'll let you both take a crack at it if you want.
Well, obviously, we've seen the outcome of disproportionate civilizational contact just in the last millennia here on Earth. Like, there's a lot of people who think that we've gone through many cycles of technology and destruction on Earth. We can get into that in a little bit, but um, running into a any sort of civilization with a greater technology set than us is always a danger to us, and there's no guarantee they're benevolent, there's not.
No. Um, some people, some people seem to become totally untethered.
Yes.
But
Yeah, absolutely.
but I think we're often too quick to judge people that way as well. If what
It's
there's,
funny.
you know, if you did undergo something like this, you'd, maybe an abduction or something, you might come away with quite a bit of PTSD or fragmented memory, or you would sound like a lunatic by default. So, of course, there's going to be actual lunatics mixed in, but we can't dismiss people right out of hand. But give everyone a
Well,
fair hearing.
it's a catch-all for any paranoid delusional fantasy that someone has, right? It catches everything, like, oh, they're talking to me, I'm special, I'm like an appointed one, I'm an intermediary between these beings and Earth.
Sure.
There's other people like, oh, I'm the only one who knows what's really going on. I need to warn everyone so that we can save humanity. There's like it feeds delusion, right? And then you get people who look into it, see that there's a lot of actual evidence in support of it, like sober, professional eyewitnesses, like pilots, and even the NASA missions had their share of contact incidents that have been sort of swept away.
Hmm. Keep on talking for a minute. I gotta do some work in the chat and all that. But I'd love to hear some more of stories. If Klein, if you got anything more, you can stay on the line until we get another caller here. And well, would anyone else like to talk? I see we have Tom Thumb in there, and we have the CEO. Mm,
What I'd like to ask is if we still have Klein on the line, is like I've seen a few glowing orb types. Uh, they don't seem like, they seem more like probes than manned ships. Like, they come in from over the ocean. I live right on the ocean. They come in from over the ocean. They're glowing. They're usually orangish, and they can change shape, or at very least the uh, the light that surrounds them grows and diminishes, right? And what happens is if you're out, I lay out in the lawn chairs in the summer. Me and the wife, we sit out there with the dogs and stuff, and we'll sleep out there even sometimes, in the lawn chairs, set them up, and there's this static energy that you can, before you even see them, you can almost tell they're around, because there's this really hyperstatic, electrostatic energy in the atmosphere when they come around, and they usually pop in around 3 to 5,000 feet, and they come in from the due west over our property, and they usually go directly over it. But I've seen them, do turns and um, make course adjustments and stuff like that. Did you have any sort of impression that there was like a different sort of like energy in the atmosphere when you saw this thing?
I guess the way I would respond to that is that there was a sense of discomfort, but nothing that I could quite relate to that. The sense of discomfort came more from just like how clear it was. Like it was just a very clear night. And I actually found the email I sent to the guy that I referred to earlier. So I actually remember the reason why I sat outside, but it was on August 13th in 2015, and there was a big meteor shower going through Saskatchewan. And that was the reason I took a little extra time, was because there was bright meteors all the time. But yeah, I guess it was just once I saw it in the oh, excuse me, one sec. Once I saw it in the distance, it was just like an understanding of like this is not the same thing. So there was just a discomfort.
Well, I'm gonna crack out my silver disc story, which is my coup de grace.
Before you
But I was
before you do, let's
no
take
in a
another. Or is
bit,
this
in a
important?
bit.
Okay.
This is just a preamble.
Okay.
But when I saw the silver disc, it was a definitely very close. Like if I had to estimate, it probably came as close as 100 feet uh, from me and the girl I was with at the time. And the energy, like the energy that was coming off that craft, made me feel like a mouse in a corner. Like it was absolute awe at being confronted with a technology that was obviously superior to you, and also I think it was just the energy coming out, the electrogravitic energy coming off, the anti-gravitic energy coming off the craft, or however they propel themselves. I think it's just the nature of them, how they operate, that there's this really intense field around them that it's awe and fear inducing. And anyway, yeah, so I can relate.
Those those preternatural feelings are extremely surprising, and I think that's one way to. I think if the event doesn't surprise you in some way, how revelatory can it be? How actual, like genuine can it be? Um, nothing. You can't. If you slap yourself in the face, you can't really make it hurt that much. If you can't shock yourself into stopping sneezing or whatever. You can only be scared or delighted or whatever from things outside yourself. So when they provoke these strong emotions, it's a good case in their. It's a good mark in their favor.
Yeah, absolutely. um I'm probably the only one in this chat that read Jason Georgiani's recent book, Closer Encounters. But I got it because, like I say, I have an interest in this stuff for a long time, and he's actually got a really amazing theory in this book, um, about how he asks, are they extraterrestrials? Are they interdimensional beings? Are they time travelers? Are they archetypal forms, like Jungian archetypal motifs expressing themselves? And are they a breakaway civilization? And he says yes to all of them. And then he
Hmm.
goes into this really crazy really crazy theory that's kind of wild and would make an amazing set of movies or a movie or a set of movies, I think, about how when the Nazis decoded anti-gravitic propulsion during the Second World War, they accidentally discovered a time machine. And at that point, the war became not a terrestrial war, but it became a time war. Yeah, and it's pretty interesting. I can explain a little bit more about his theories and stuff like that if anyone's interested in a bit. But it's wild because he makes a lot of leaps of faith and a lot of tenuous sort of connections. But the idea itself is pretty amazing that he comes up with. I think he kind of blows it in the analysis a little bit, but yeah, pretty cool theory.
It sounds absolutely fascinating. I'd love to take another caller. Is anyone up for that? Who's got a story here? See John there. You know what? I think Daryl's been possibly first in line here. I'll allow, in case you want to, Daryl, you're allowed to speak.
I don't have a story, but this is I'm a first time caller. Yeah, I just wanted to say I like the theme. I appreciate it. I want to believe with everything in my heart. Yeah, I didn't even know there was a theme, but NP, I know you from Twitter. You've been a mutual of mine for whether you know it or not for many years.
Well,
and probably friends of mine.
Really? What other aliases do you got? Give me a hint.
Pat Healy, Bricktop, and I believe if you're Canadian, Manslow. You know my friend Manslow.
I know Manslow.
All right, yeah, that's our connection.
All right.
He's, but like, yeah, I'm like, I saw you on Telegram. I'm like, man, I gotta follow this guy, and I have been following you. Yeah, so good. I'm a fan. Oh. But I also love this theme. So thanks for taking my call.
Absolutely. Well, tell me, did you ever listen to Coast AM?
No, but I know what that is. I watch all of the things. I know who Art Bell is and stuff like that. You know. But I need to learn more. I'll just leave it at that.
Right on.
I'll tell you, one of my favorite guys on there is George Knapp, and he's the guy who did the Skinwalker Ranch investigations, and that is a wild topic. That is a lot of crazy shit went on down there. I mean, I wish there was more I could absorb on that, but I think I've gotten every anecdote I could possibly come by. A lot of the guys who did research down there for the billionaire who bought the ranch had to sign NDAs. So, I mean, there's only so much that they can tell. And a lot of the conclusions that they came to and evidence that they gave him is hold back evidence for him because he's trying to obviously use this as some sort of, technological advantage in industry or something, I think. But that's a crazy ass story, Skinwalker Ranch. And George Knapp is on Coast to Coast all the time. He sometimes fills in for George Norrie.
Oh, are you? We should both state right now we're not suicidal. If they're hitting you with a heart attack, gun yield, you got to let us know.
Yeah, like no, we live forever.
Right.
That's what they wanted.
Right. I see Tom Thumb posted just an interesting theory here. Tom, I'm going to allow you to speak. Hop in if you'd like.
No, welcome. Thanks.
How did you come across this stream, just out of curiosity?
I saw it in one of the other rooms that this was going on there, and I love to cope. I got a kick out of that, so I thought I'd swing in and see. And then you were talking about UFOs, so that's a topic I'm very fluent in. So yeah.
That's awesome. Well, have you ever had a personal experience with them?
Just one, but it was about 5 years ago, and it was at a great distance. But I'm on the West Coast, and so I've seen, and from my background, I've seen missiles and things like that. I know what those are like, and I saw what I thought was a shooting star coming down at about 45 degrees from the northwest to the southwest, and I was coming up my driveway. I'm on a hill, and so being the sentimental, superstitious person I am, I thought I better pause and make a wish before it goes out of sight. And to my surprise, before it hit the horizon, it did a complete 180, and then went the other direction and cleared the entire horizon in like 1.5 seconds. It was like, oh my God, I saw my first UFO. Yeah. So, but that's probably, I used to think I would want to have a close encounter, but I think now I would pass.
When I was a
Yeah,
kid,
they don't.
sorry, when I was just
No,
going to
go
say, when
ahead.
I was a kid, I desperately wanted to meet aliens. I'd read, from like being 6 years old, reading Bruce Coville and then working my way up all the sci-fi. I thought that would be the coolest thing ever. But yeah, I truly think it would probably be one of the most frightening things that could happen to you.
Yeah. If you've noticed, if you've been following or been into this topic, in the last 3 to 5 years, there's just been an unbelievable amount of official government revelations. The timing seems kind of odd, especially the Navy releases in the last few years, and then the Tucker Carlson interview from last month was a real eye opener. So I don't know have people actually seen that interview, the one I posted.
I saw the Tucker Carlson materials from the Naval Defense releases and stuff. Pretty wild stuff.
This one with Gary Nolan specifically. Tucker's done a number of UFO themed ones. I haven't even seen all those, but this one was very interesting because this one professor was approached by the intelligence services to investigate blood work, for people that had had very close encounters, and they wanted to see how these people had been biologically hurt, right? And he thought he was being pranked, actually. But, he was basically read into this. But one of the things that's very interesting was he pointed out that the history of this, at least in the U.S., didn't begin at Roswell. It actually began at Trinity, and there were sightings there. And the other thing that was very interesting is that the official policy to obfuscate the phenomenon here in the U.S. for a variety of reasons that might have even made sense apparently is being reversed, and now they're trying to sort of herd all of these compartmentalized secret Project Cats. And so the government has just passed legislation and is funded for 2023 sort of a whistleblower line where anyone who's been involved in any of these projects, most of which are in the custody of big corporations like Lockheed, the old Hughes Aircraft, Martin Marietta, all the big DoD folks.
Yeah, JPL.
Yeah, so they're the custodians of most of the data and the artifacts, but they have both commercial and other interests not to share them, right? Because their one could be competitive advantage for technology, and they've had this stuff in their own labs under lock and key forever. And then people who were read into these programs did so under very fierce, often threatening NDAs. And so the Congress has passed a law saying anyone who's touched or been involved in one of these programs can report it without fear of reprisal or of violating the NDA, because they want to have all this information in one place now so they can try to understand it, because they're still no closer than they were in probably 48.
What do you make of people who've come forward like Philip Corso or Bob Lazar say?
Well, there's two schools of thought as I see it. There's sort of the nuts and bolts people that look at this as a issue of technology, but it's like you said, or someone said earlier, the more you read about this, the crazier and the weirder the phenomenon gets. It's not it's deeper than just advanced technology and propulsion systems. For example, this phenomenon's been with us for all of human history. Even the American Indians have this in their tradition. They called these appearances from the star people. In the Civil War, after the Civil War, there was a flash of sightings. But what's interesting is that the craft that were seen then had rivets, right?
Yeah, the great airship sightings, and it was like through the late 1800s, right? Like the 1880s, and yeah, I think the last ones that people saw were just before the flight age, ironically.
Yeah. So the point is that when people see and interact with this technology, it's always their technology plus one. So in the ancient times, it was chariots in the sky. Remember, in the Civil War, a lot of new technology had rolled out. They had all the technology pretty much of World War I in place. They had air balloons, they had telegraph, trenches, machine guns, that kind of stuff. But it was the first time that they went from wood ships to the ironclads. Remember the famous battle between the Merrimack and the Monitor. Those are the first naval battles with ironclads. And so the cutting edge technology was, riveted iron. And here these flying things are made of riveted iron, right? And then when the technology got better, and say by World War II, and fighter pilots in both the Pacific and European theaters saw these things as well and called them Foo Fighters.
I just want to interrupt briefly for everyone to appreciate for a second the imagery of a coal-powered UFO.
Yeah,
That would be awesome. Bellowing out a smokestack and a little, maybe the Greys just shoveling in there.
Yeah, that would be definitely pretty cool steampunk tech.
Yeah. Okay.
Right.
Sorry, that was just a brief aside. So the Foo Fighters,
Yeah.
the first, Second World War.
Attached smoke? Would the smokestack be attached to the UFO?
It would be about 30 feet away. That's right.
Oh, okay.
I don't think that what people saw then, they saw smokestacks they just saw flying things that were made of riveted iron. Right?
Yeah.
But the point is that this technology is just deeper than propulsion. There's some sort of interaction with human consciousness. And then if you look at the stories of like alien abductions where people are molested or probed in one fashion or another, those are almost identical to the folklore stories of incubi and succubi and the fairies taking people away. The little fairies. Every culture has these stories of dwarves, elves, fairies. The Hawaiians have many.
I have like a blood memory fear of fairies, like of the Fae or whatever. I don't speak ill of. I try not to mess with them. They send shivers down my spine just thinking about them.
So if you've read, there's another guy who did research in this with Hynek in the original Project Blue Book by the name of Dr. Jacques Vallée. If you've seen Close Encounters, the French scientist is sort of playing him, but he kind of opened up the other school of thought that this is an older, more ancient phenomenon that's more interesting than just technology and propulsion, and has some sort of links to other phenomenon like when people have how many people here have heard about the machine elves in the psychedelic world?
Absolutely.
Oh yeah,
DMT theory.
I've definitely seen the machine elves in person.
Yeah. So there you go. So there's a weird. If you draw a Venn diagram, you could have the UFO phenomenon in one place. You could have the the mystic astral projection stuff in another, and then you could have machine elves from psychedelia, and the phenomenon of revelations, like you mentioned earlier. Someone was saying that people who have these experiences feel special or anointed, or they've spoken to God. And if you look at most of the foundings of most religions, whether it's Abraham or Christ, or certainly if you look at the Joseph Smith or any of these figures, the phenomenon they have, whether it's a single person or whether it's multiple people like Fatima or Lourdes, it's awe-inspiring, and it motivates them to change the culture, right? And Vali has posited that this phenomenon may be consciously and deliberately interacting with humankind, kind of like experimenting or tending a garden, right? I mean, their technology just from the propulsion side is orders of magnitude beyond ours. And obviously they can do whatever they want with this. So who knows?
Well, if I could just jump in here for a sec, that's absolutely fascinating avenue to go down. Like when you're talking about how it sort of happens in stages plus one, I never really thought about it that way, but you can actually go through the phenomenon, like the abduction phenomenon itself was a lot more prevalent in the 70s and early 80s. And also the probing and everything was reported heavily during those times. And then afterwards, you see the like cattle mutilations came in a phase that sort of trickled out. You also have other phases that have swollen up and drift and dissipated, like the Men in Black, like because they have their own sort of secret service that goes around and visits contactees, apparently with the Men in Black phenomena, where these people show up. There's something not quite human about them, but they have this sort of hypnotic power to persuade people to let them into the home. They ask a series of sometimes odd and irrelevant lines of questioning. Often they'll have like a black box with them that is that never gets elaborated upon why they have it, even if they're asked. And like I say, the implant phenomena was something that was discussed heavily for a while in these circles, but then peters out. It's almost like on Telegram you see like memes will rise and fall, and it's almost that sort of thing on a cosmic scale.
Well, yeah, if you think about it, I mean, the thing Bali points out is that they have the ability, and there's documents from the U.S. government and Canada going back to 47 and 48, where they say that they learned really early that there's some link between the phenomenon and consciousness. Even fighter pilots who are chasing these things talk about feeling like they're being played with, right? And that their moves are anticipated. So if they can do that, and if they can make people see whatever they want to see based on the culture of the time and what's comprehensible, they're doing to us at multiple levels what we do with our cats and a laser pointer.
Yeah, interesting stuff. Absolutely. Wasn't Valet involved with George Adamski and his apparent contacts?
I don't know. He talked and has rubbed shoulders with just about everybody in the movement, and his research is very, very, very solid. And
it touches on Jungian elements of psychology as well, doesn't it? Like,
I mean, obviously the whatever the archetypes are and whatever consciousness is. I mean, if you think about it, consciousness is the big elephant in the living room of the modern world, right? Science doesn't even acknowledge consciousness, other than minds are what brains do. So
yeah, it's too slippery for science, although like metaphysics and epistemology and stuff have a bit of a grasp on it, but not much.
Yeah, so yeah, it's a wild phenomenon. And it's interesting that the deliberate policy to deny and obfuscate it, that was government policy, apparently in the last 3 to 5 years is being openly reversed and repudiated. And that in that Tucker Carlson interview, they cite a piece of legislation for the budget that they're creating a way to try to herd all those cats so they can get hold of this information and consolidate it rather than having it siloed all over the place.
Do you believe in retrieved crash site vehicles? Do you think that's
There's some
actually
people that I find credible that say they've seen artifacts in labs and have handled them and found really interesting things. So yes,
there is a material aspect to this as well? Like,
yes, there absolutely is a material aspect of this
I mean,
as well.
things with incomprehensible qualities, or things that are engineered with materials that are not found on Earth. Like there's things with super rare combinations of super rare elements that are almost would be impossible for us to engineer with our current level of technology and stuff as well.
Well, I would imagine if they can master inertia and dispense with gravity at will, then they can do things with chemistry as well.
Well, would you say that it's maybe less or let's say, well, let me put it this way, like it's our comprehension of like say reality and physics and stuff, our misapprehensions about it are probably maybe the biggest obstacle to understanding it, perhaps.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the fact that we're clueless after this many years shows that we're missing something.
Well, it's very important to bring that up. I mean, if you look up in the sky and you look up at stars and you consider for the fact that those stars have been around for maybe 1,000 years before us and the technology is advanced before us. I'm saying things you guys already know. It's like, like maybe we're not as advanced as we think we are. We're pretty cute, but like in a grand scale of the universe, we're not that advanced. They're looking at us because we did the nukes, right? We blew up radiation and stuff.
I've heard this theory before. It was even popularized in Grant Morrison's The Invisibles that nukes opened a sort of gateway.
Well, I would say that there is a really interesting avenue with Parsons. What's his name's there? Love and Rockets, Jack Parsons. He claims to have taken a lot of Crowleyan rituals out to the desert and opened a portal, and which they call it's called the Babylon working. And the purpose of this was to usher in the Scarlet Woman who rode the beast of the apocalypse. And they said what happened was they opened a portal and something flew through. And that was right around the time before a huge spate of UFO sightings began to happen. And this was right in the Roswell, New Mexico area as well, that they performed these workings. So there's definitely a magical sort of, metaphysical aspect to it that I think is worthy of consideration, at least.
Without a doubt.
Because just as a final thought on that, Crowley was channeling a being he called Aiwass. In 1907, he went into the king's chamber in the Pyramid of Giza and did a channeling. And he wrote the Book of the Law, which is, if you've ever read it, is practically incomprehensible. It's like meaningless to a non-adept. But he also drew a picture of the entity that he was channeling, called Lamb. And Lamb looks exactly like a modern gray. And this was in 1907.
Wow.
That this painting is from.
But
I mean, if you think about
what about they're just more technologically advanced than us because they have 3,000 years ahead of us.
Wait. Okay. Tom, I want to hear what you have to say there.
Well, I mean, people remember we talked about the machine elves, where people using DMT can sort of force that inner barrier and see things in the same order and encounter things in the same order and encounter the same beings, right? When they first did that research, that's why the guy kind of blew his mind, Richard Straussman, who did the first work on that. But people can put themselves into similar states with fasting, meditation, and other types of rituals. People have been doing this to put themselves into those states like that, seeking the vision or the encounter. So that Crowley or other mystics saw demons and then saw the similar types of things, if you believe that there's a common intersection between these phenomena, that wouldn't be surprising.
Okay, as a brief intermission, everyone who wants to stay on the line, please do, especially Tom here. I find your depth of knowledge really great for this.
Absolutely.
But we got John from the Voter Apathy Party. He found a story I think he wants to read us, if I'm understanding. Hi, John. Oh, there you are.
I lost the button. There it is. Unmuted.
I can hear you now. Okay.
Say it.
John, if you're listening from YouTube, you might be featuring a big delay here. You should mute your YouTube and unmute your Telegram, possibly. Okay, we'll come back to John. Okay. Eald.
Dude, I cannot fucking figure out this mute button.
No, you're
You're
good.
there now.
We can hear you.
Yo, Big NP.
Hey, how are you, bud?
Big NP. How do we talk to people about getting this vaccine over here and getting these people vaccinated? You know what I mean?
That's the actual purpose of the show. We just I think it's important.
Absolutely.
Most people are 5 ahead of us. I feel like a complete loser. I'm five jabs behind.
This is a pro-vax chat.
Before I was while I was trying to look up Big Spence, how do we get people vaccinated? I was trying to find that copy pasta or copy quoting, for lack of a better term,
Good
from that viral video. I was gonna do that to you, but
that'd be pretty funny.
Apparently I can't figure out how to fucking mute or unmute myself on Telegram.
It kind of kills the comedic timing, not gonna lie.
I know, but I'm sorry. I am chugging along anyway. So I'm gonna read this little story called "The Little Hands," and maybe we all can commentate on it. Hopefully,
Sure.
I'm not too loud, not too quiet.
No, you're all right. So, to your knowledge, is this a true story, though?
I have no idea, but it was published by the Reader's Digest
As a true story.
And,
Okay.
Yes, yeah. I mean, I trust the Reader's Digest over
the authoritative voice. Absolutely.
Yes.
Oh yes. Oh, God.
Oi, I've never lived in a haunted house. I've never lived in a haunted house, but my mother did as a teen, end quote, writes Reddit.com user Patented Space Hook, recounting a true event. Quote, other houses on the street had strange things going on, too. A few homes away had her lived a few... God, I read this whole thing beforehand, too, so I wouldn't ruin this.
You
like
need
I did
one
just
more
now.
drink or one less drink. Keep going.
Yeah,
You got it.
yeah. It's
Have
right
another
there.
drink.
It's half finished. Quote, other houses on the street had strange things going on, too. A few homes away from her lived a family. One night, the daughter went to bed with a bad headache. The next day, she was dead. She passed away from an aneurysm. After her funeral, the family went away to get their minds off the tragedy, and the father asked my uncle, my mom's brother, to check on their pets. My mom and dad, who were dating at the time, went with him. My mother had heard there was a grand piano, and she went to play it. My dad was studying to be a veterinarian. After entering the house, my uncle and my father headed to the basement to see the animals, and my mother went to the piano on the ground floor. She was playing it when she felt something brush against her ankles. She thought a cat must have left the basement and walked past her. She kept playing, and then she felt it again. She looked under the piano and saw nothing. When she started again, she felt hands clasp her legs tightly. She dashed to the basement door, called my uncle and my father, and waited for them back outside. My uncle could tell my mom was rattled and asked what was wrong. She told him what had happened, and he turned white. He told her the daughter who had died used to play a game with her father. When he played the piano, she'd crawl underneath, grab his ankles, and push his feet up and down on the pedals. If that experience sounds thrilling to you, you might also like exploring what paranormal experts are saying on the hyperlinked most haunted places in America. So I guess just ignore that last sentence. But what do you all think? Like, you think there's a ghost grabbing the ankles of this mother playing the piano?
Well, it's in the Reader's Digest. I don't really see how it could lie.
Yeah, it must be true.
You know, it's not quite as scary as the SpongeBob copy pasta, but it's not too bad. I enjoyed that.
I tried. I'm sorry I screwed up in the in the intro.
No, that's absolutely okay.
Yeah, I want to say too that yeah, this show is open for any sort of topic like this. Like we got off onto a UFO tangent, and I find that stuff endlessly fascinating. But if anybody's got anything else to talk about, flat Earth, hollow Earth, mystical beings, ghosts, yeah, any of that sort of stuff, yeah, hop in.
No, I love that. Like UFOs have been a very taboo subject. I guess for 50 years. What do I know? I haven't been around that long, but I love that UFOs. Tucker Carlson was like, "Oh yeah, here's a primetime segment on UFOs," and just covered it and ignored all the typical people who were interviewed for that kind of stuff.
What do you
And
guys
not to throw
what do you guys
Go
think of that? Was it Blink 182? What's his name? What do you
Oh,
guys
Tom
think? of this?
DeLonge.
Yeah,
Tom
anyone want to
DeLonge.
comment on that one?
He's bought and paid for. He's part of the machine. He's part of the machine that believes that the aliens are coming here to kill you instead of the aliens being your friends.
hey, two
That's
more
what-
weeks.
That's what Tubi told me. That's what Tubi videos told me. The aliens, I mean, are the aliens our friends or are they hostile? We should talk about that, right?
Good topic.
Well, there's such a broad range of interactions, right? Like if you take all the people's examples, it's not just Greys and Nordics, right? There's a million types of encounters with like so many different described types of aliens. So it makes you it really goes back to was it Tom what he was saying on like it being sort of an expression of consciousness and stuff, because it seems to relate in some aspect to the mindset of the people who are viewing it, and the geographical region, the time period, and all that sort of thing. Where it's just slightly more incomprehensible than than they can imagine at that threshold, at their threshold.
Yeah.
So I don't know how it depends how you look at it. I mean,
Right.
if you think they're interdimensional, if you think they're extraterrestrial, if you think they're time
Right.
travelers, if you think they're a breakaway civilization.
But the modern, like, they want to assume automatically the idea. They want to assume that they're hostile. Like that
Well,
would be easy for them to do, because
I'm a
then
human-
we could all get together as a human race.
Well,
and
I'm a
come
human
together
being,
to
and
fight the aliens. You know what I mean?
I'd like to see 4 billion people gone personally, but
I think
He's
it's
like-
more practical if we assume that they're going to be hostile.
Yeah, because then we could form a whole new world order coalition and come
Right?
together
Just
as a
one
human.
giant government.
Yes,
That'd be awesome.
Do you know
to
actually-
fight the
amazing.
aliens. To
You know-
fight the aliens. That's
Here.
sounds pretty logical, right?
Well, if we're drifting into this topic, Isaac Asimov, the famous liberal, if you read to the very end of the Foundation series, the actual conclusion in goes it's the 4th or 5th book. The robot who has to make this decision ultimately concludes that the galaxy should have one galaxy hive mind in case there's ever an external threat. So we know that these we know that it's almost like it's not a new idea.
Hold
to
on.
liberalism.
Oh,
Isaac Asimov is known as one of the most famous short book writers of all time, having written 200 short books, and you're like, oh yeah,
can I get an early life check? Asimov.
hold on. And he's like, right after the 5th book.
No,
Like,
the Foundation in the Foundation series. I think 4th and
Okay.
5th. The last book in the Foundation series. Not many
Okay.
people read past the 3rd or even 2nd, and I don't even recommend it. It's ideologically driven and it's completely liberal, but it kind of shows their mindset, right?
I did like the Black Widow series or whatever. I don't know. Here's where I'm gonna play NP on his podcast. Be like, okay, guys, let's go take a break, and I'm gonna go smoke a cigarette. So I'll be right back.
Hey,
Thanks, John.
we all need a break. We all need a break. There's nothing wrong with that.
Well, you guys fill some air. I guess my mic's all the way to left because I got it in mono. Hold up.
Hey, you guys, take a smoke break. We'll be right back after these messages.
we actually did have bumper music and the whole coast to coast intro and everything, but unfortunately technical difficulties precluded their involvement tonight. So
Come on, like
No.
And fear of copyright.
infringements. Yeah.
Yeah, every time NP's like, we're gonna take a break and we'll be back in 3 seconds. I just hear that NP is gonna go have a cigarette. But
No, I'm
That's what I'm
vaping
going to do
throughout the
now.
entire stream. So,
Wait, I thought we were on Telegram. Like, you guys are worried about copyright infringement?
well, we're on YouTube too. We're also on YouTube.
Hey, oh wait. So if I say I can't say the N word right now?
I'd rather you didn't. But
Oh shit!
I have wanted to.
Oh my
about
god!
3
I
times already.
was really gonna roll one out. I was gonna roll them out. Man, I was on Telegram. I'm like, I'm on Telegram. I can say whatever I want. Nibba.
well, it wouldn't be the end of the world.
Hey, chew your food all the way. Don't be nibbling it.
Oh
Just to
man, you have no
clarify.
idea. I'm on Telegram. I'm about free speech.
All
About
right,
free speech. That's why I'm here.
that's some good banter. Let's,
I say what I want. I say what I want, you motherfuckers.
thanks for the commercial break. This
you don't know
this has
me.
been brought to you by the Peanut Gallery.
You don't know me. You don't like fried chicken.
We're-
Catch me outside. Catch me
Get that
outside.
slide.
Sponsored
Join
by-
my clan on
Down Brooks is a saint, nibba. Yeah.
Legend of
I'm muting you guys for a second so I can make my own raids, Shadow Legend. Yeah, it's your boy, Chewy Peanut Niblets. Come, this edition of Cope to Cope AM's brought to you by Chewy Peanut Niblets. Try one today. Okay, let's get back on topic a little bit. You guys are funny. Tom, I want to hear more of your musings, because you and Eald here have just profound depth and all. Or unless Eald wants to tell one of his.
No, I'd love to hear more of what Tom has to say here.
I posted a link to that series One Step Beyond.
What's that?
Oh
about?
yeah, in the chat there.
I only learned about it a couple months ago. Most of you have heard of like the Twilight Zone and the Outer Limits, right?
Absolutely, love those shows.
Well, this was the thing that started it all. So Twilight Zone and Outer Limits came after this. This was the first one and started in 1959 to 61. But unlike the other two, which were, demonstrably always sort of fiction and fantasy and, way out stories, One Step Beyond attempted or claimed to always have interesting stories from the supernatural, right? So it's all the paranormal stuff that we're talking about. And they're very interesting, and they have lots of vintage actors in these little 20, 30-minute episodes. Absolutely. That are very interesting.
I was just watching Outer Limits for the first time since like the 90s, and I couldn't believe at the caliber of 90s babes they had on that show.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, carry on.
Yeah, so if you get a chance, you can actually find the entire series either online or through discs. I was in a dollar store, and in the bargain bin, where they have old DVDs and things for like $1, I came across one of these, and it was like unbelievable. It was like a 3 DVD set, and then I found that there were more, so I ordered the rest of them. I found them on eBay and Amazon, and I haven't even finished them all. There's so many. There's about probably 50 to 100 episodes, including one that was their biggest, in that they pulled from the air that was the host, John Newland, going to Mexico and taking ayahuasca. In 1959.
Wow, that was way ahead of the curve.
Yeah, yes. Remember, LSD was invented in 1943.
Yeah,
Owsley, right?
and no, it was
Hoffman.
And so the April 19th, the same day as Waco and other dates. April 19th is Bicycle Day. That's the day that the first LSD trip was taken by Albert Hoffman.
Yeah, and the interesting thing about that too is he was besties with Ernst Jünger. That was his closest friend, and a lot of the people who ended up tripping were actually high level Nazi party officials and things like that as well, like people high-ranking German military officials as well. And
they mentioned that in the Man in the High Castle.
Is that right?
Yeah, that was very interesting.
Yeah, and when you read Ernst Jünger, like there's a real extra dimension to his writing that really takes you into the story, as far as I'm concerned. And I think his.
Sorry, keep going. I got something to come back to.
I was just going to say, like that couldn't have helped but have an impact on his style of writing, and it's a very visual but visceral as well. Like he can almost pull you into the sensation in his writing. It's absolutely he's a very underrated writer, I think. Not just Storm of Steel, but his other books as well.
Absolutely. Now, you just mentioned Man in the High Castle. Philip K. Dick wrote a book, or one of his stories was called Veilus. And I think Philip K. Dick himself speculated that he also wrote Man in the High Castle, is the connection there. But he's I think he thought Valus was real. I think that was a genuine theory from him, and other people have agreed with it. You guys know much about that one?
No, I haven't read that one. I've read most of his others. You know, he was very prolific. I mean, there's probably a good half dozen classic sci-fi movies are based on his work, even Blade Runner.
Yes, I'm quite a fan. But check out Valus. It was I'd have to look up what it stands for. It's basically his philosophy put into things. It's sort of, I think it's behind the moon. It's a consciousness, a godlike consciousness that is there to save us from a dark age or something of this nature. I can't quite remember. Philip K. Dick was addicted to stimulants while he was writing. That's how part of the reason he was so prolific, but also so imaginative.
Well, apparently, one of the themes in conspiratorial ufology is the presence of other civilizations on the moon, and that there's a lot of really, really strange things about the moon when you start looking into it closely. Like a lot of things about the moon that are so mathematically consequential that it couldn't be coincidence. And the fact that when they sent up the probes and things to the moon and they landed on the moon, they said it rang like a bell for over an hour, indicating that it is some sort of hollowed structure. And also, there's in the heyday of when the CIA and a lot of covert agencies, military agencies, were looking into remote viewing. They had people remote view the moon as well, and they all came to the conclusion that there were beings on the moon. So it's a really interesting aspect of ufology, that it's a rabbit hole you can fall down and go a long way down.
Do you mind if I inquire?
I
on
believe
the-
that.
Klein.
I was just gonna say I'd like to inquire. I used to be into kind of carny tricks, like old school carnival kind of stuff, and something I always thought was interesting was psychics and stuff like that. So I would like to just propose the question and see your insight on: do you believe that remote viewing could potentially be a state of self-hypnosis?
Well, it is it does put you into I forget what the state it is. It is an altered consciousness state. I think I'm not sure if it's theta
It is the
or
theta waves, yes.
theta, yeah. And it's interesting. I saw this one guy who did a documentary going to debunk this group of people who are claiming to train remote viewers. And this guy was just your average reporter, doing an one-off piece. And he went there and he went through the training, and they gave him a target, and he did everything they said to do, and he drew a picture, and it just looked like a bunch of squiggly lines, and he was like, oh, and then they gave him the envelope to open, and it was actually a dolphin, and that he traced the outline of the dolphin in this of the picture and in the envelope perfectly. It was unbelievable. It really tripped him out. And I don't know, it's something I've always wanted to try, doing try my hand at remote viewing, but I don't really have a lot of experience with it at all, or know too much about that. How about Tom? Is he still here?
Oh, I'm still here. I'm sending you guys another link to a wonderful podcast that covers a lot of this stuff. And it's probably the best podcast, I think, online you can find for investigations into this kind of phenomenon.
I'm going to copy that into the YouTube chat here, too.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
but the remote viewing stuff is, people have been doing that. I mean, it's a well-established, phenomenon. And the reason it's so mysterious is because we don't know what consciousness is. You should look into the work by Dean Radin or the Pear Project in Princeton. I mean, they demonstrated 30 years ago that human consciousness or intention, whatever that is, can impact any random process at any scale. So balls falling, turbulent water, you name it, right? In a statistically meaningful way, right? So we're just at the infancy of that. They can even do interactions with human intention with like a double slit experiment.
What was the guy's name who did the experiments? And this was quite recently. He's a British lord, and he did experiments that if you look at the back of someone's neck, and then if you can reliably guess that the person's looking at your neck.
I don't think he's a lord. You're talking about Rupert Sheldrake.
Yes, that's what I'm talking about. Yes.
Yeah. Rupert Sheldrake. He's a really brilliant guy, and he and who's the other guy that does the archaeology stuff? They have the distinction of being the only two guys to be banned from TED Talks and thrown into the naughty corner.
Wow. Not even Sam Hyde also got that?
No, I don't think so. But yeah, anything by Rupert Sheldrake is really good. He's done all kinds of very interesting experiments, and then the usual, skeptic fanboys like Michael Shermer and others come out and try to debunk these kinds of things, but they failed. Shermer was in a scandal because he duplicated one of the experiments, but then claimed he hadn't.
Graham Hancock, Josh just helpfully.
Yeah, Graham Hancock. Yeah.
Well, where I live, I live out on the coast of BC, and where I live, there's a lot of like one of the students of Aleister Crowley moved here with a bunch of rich acolytes, and they started like a group of thelemic magicians around here. And so you get a lot of people who are really into ritual magic in this area. And I actually knew a couple of people who were part of the OTO in Victoria, BC. And I've actually seen results with that sort of operation, like people getting like tangible results from just doing things like in rituals with like a strong willpower and intent to produce a desired result. Like Crowley was saying that the four major things to magic were to know, to dare, to will, and to remain silent. So he said that's in book 4, and he's like those are like the 4 major pillars of magic. And magic is just like it's like what other people are doing in different avenues, only in a more European tradition of esotericism, right? Like
actually, the latest book by Dean Radin is called Real Magic, and he came to that same conclusion after doing lab with lasers and double slits, that these phenomenon used to be called magic when people were trained in those traditions, but it's the same thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
I see we got another person who joined the chat here. Keck, did you have a story you wanted to tell? I'm gonna just allow you to speak if you want to. You're by no means obliged, but we'd love to hear from you if you have a paranormal story.
No, I'm just gonna listen if that's cool.
That's cool.
You're cool.
Well, I was talking to NP about this a little while ago, and I was raised in southern Ontario, and I grew up beside the Six Nations Native Reserve, and I spent most of my time out there. Actually, like I had my best friend was a native, and he lived right where the reservation bordered the local town that I grew up in, and I spent a lot of time out there. And they have a really, really strong magical tradition that is called Hadui or false face. And what happened was when the colonial oppression happened on them, and they were forced into reserves, and They tried to, banned like the Longhouse, and they banned a lot of things because they were trying to get them to conform to a more European style of mode of existence. What they did is they turned their magical traditions into a secret society, and it's called False Face. And so these all the medicine men and stuff, they carve these crazy faces, eh? And sometimes they inherit these masks. They've gone back like generations and generations, and they believe that each person who possesses them imbues them with more and more power, you know. And interestingly, um, I was out there. We went to a party, and the guy who we were at the party's grandfather was a Hadui. He was a false face, and we were sitting there, and I was just sitting between my two friends, and we had been smoking some pot and stuff. And my one friend grabbed the mask off the wall, and he turned to my other friend who was on the other side of me and went boo with it. And the kid who saw that happen immediately ejected us from the house. Like, it was frantic. Like, he wanted us out of there, right? And so we willingly left, and we're driving down the road, and I'm looking out the window, and I've got a good buzz on. I'm going to admit. I look out the right side of the car. I see the moon, and then I'm looking forward, and I look out the left side of the car, and I'm admiring the beautiful moon. And then I look back over to the right, and I look to the left, and I realized the on the right side of the car wasn't a moon. It was this glowing orb that was just sort of following the car at the same pace as the car. And as soon as I noticed it and looked at it, I tried to talk to my friends, and they were stone silent, and they were just trying to ignore it because they had already noticed and saw it. And it started moving around, and so they became really agitated, and they were trying to discuss, like, oh, what did your grandmother tell you to do if this ever happens? And I was like, what the fuck is going on, man? Like, what is fucking happening here? And they were just like, oh, it's a witch light, you gotta just be quiet, shut up, like, let us handle it or whatever. So the one guy says, I think my grandma said to swear at it, to cuss. So we're driving this Monte Carlo down the res road at like 70 miles an hour. The one guy's hanging out the passenger window, screaming every obscenity you can imagine at this thing, right? And I'm just sitting there shitting my pants. I didn't know what the fuck was going on. It was probably the first really strange thing I'd ever seen in my life, actually. And it was following the car. It was getting really agitated. I thought it was just going to burst right into the vehicle. And as soon as we crossed the railroad tracks that separated Indian land from white land and went on to the white land, it disappeared. That was the strangest fucking thing I'd ever seen in my life up until that point. And that is a 100% true encounter. But not the only weird thing I ever saw in that reserve, I'll tell you that. Those people have an amazing spiritual tradition that is completely outside the scope of what Europeans consider um, mystical, magical, or metaphysical, for sure.
Yeah, the North American Aboriginal traditions are really quite beautiful, and I really respect them. They like to keep it very close in the family, like extra close.
Yeah, I was actually told I probably shouldn't tell that story. Like, they were like, what you saw was like wasn't really meant for you, and, blah blah blah, that sort of thing, right? Like, they always would keep everything on the hush, and I was kind of interested in that kind of stuff as a young kid, right? So I'd always be asking them about, like, what about this? What about that? I heard something about this. What about that? They would never want to tell you. It's like their thing, right? And like I wish we were a little more like that sometimes ourselves.
What do you think of if this is tied to spirituality and the maybe like Jungian collective unconscious was mentioned before? Jung also believed that our collective unconscious was kind of racially shared. Do you think that would have a big impact on Do you think maybe different races have different relationships with the spirits? And would are there some that are more universal, like say the Fae we were mentioned before?
That's an interesting question. Whether the spiritual hierarchy is akin to races.
I mean, certainly different symbols and stuff appear more commonly. Like, you read the I Ching or whatever, it's full of turtles and birds landing and the weak overcoming the strong, quiet lakes, stuff like that. This is also in the Tao Te Ching sort of symbol. We have our own sort of language that way. I wonder if it would tell us a lot to know that if these phenomena follow these differences in language, or if they follow a more universal basis, we could tell a lot about where they're coming from.
Well, I know that if anyone here has any experience with ayahuasca, you'll know that if you take this jungle medicine, especially if you take what's a brew that's made with Mimosa hostilis root bark, that you get hallucinations that are very tied to jungle imagery quite often, like pumas and boa constrictors, especially snakes. Snakes feature prominently in it. You'll see leopards and different jungle creatures. It's interesting because even if you're taking it in Canada and you have no connection with Brazilian culture at all, or even any knowledge of it, people have had these types of strong connections with the jungle imagery. I'm not sure they can be just explained away by suggestion.
Does this mean that Mumu Ogun Thunderstrike You might actually work?
I don't know. It might work on an African. I wish it would.
I can confirm that works. Yeah, and use it privately.
Thanks, Daryl.
Well, what would you say, Tom, about that? I mean, Jung wrote that whole essay on Wotan, right? The spiritual awakening of the Germans in the rise of National Socialism as an expression of Wotan, right? As an archetypal form.
I see some parallels there. There's some really good interviews, believe it or not, with Jordan Peterson talking about ayahuasca and Jung and Jung's Red Book. Jung wrote his Red Book after he visited New Mexico and did some hallucinogens. And if you've ever seen the Red Book, I wish I'd bought a copy. I saw a big version, sort of a coffee table edition some years ago. But looking through it, and you looked at the images and the writing, and it was like, yeah, he's done hallucinogens. But the Sheldrake that we alluded to earlier, he has a theory that he posited back in the 70s called morphic resonance. And it's the idea that what we call laws of nature are really more like habits, and that when something is done once or thought once or happens once for the first time, then the same time the circumstances arise for similar things, it's more likely. And so you scale that up, and you have people that are, and they've done experiments with this, by the way. So if you try to synthesize a crystal that's never been done before, it never occurred in nature, and you make it in the lab and it takes X amount of time, if you try to make that same crystal elsewhere, it will happen more quickly. And you've heard of the 100th monkey phenomenon. And apparently that happens with animals and mammals learning things or knowing things. So that what he calls morphic resonance might be the mechanism for what Jung calls this collective conscious.
The most striking example of that, I believe, is the macaques, who I think one learned to wash a potato in a stream, and then across the world, with no possible way of communication, other macaques started doing it at that same week or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. And they've done it with humans too. So have you ever seen those images where you have to look at it and then once you see what it is, you can't unsee it? But it's sort of like a puzzle, and it's like Chinese handcuffs, trying to see what's in there until you do, and then you can always see it.
Right.
So they did tests like that where they randomly created those types of images and showed them to people like in the US and noted how long it took that control group to see that. So then once those people had seen the images and they knew how long it took, they showed a similar set on television to people in like Britain and noted how long it took, right? And it was shorter, right? And they've done this in a variety of different contexts. So it means that there's a connectedness that's very deep for all kinds of information that can form crystals, information for people knowing about things. This could be how telepathy works. But the thing is, it's something you can actually research and design experiments for now.
Well, I wish I had the more information on what I'm about to say, because it's just I'm just going to drop it out there without any context. But apparently, I was looking at this one paper that's saying that they've always thought that evolution was strictly a series of random mutations and chance, right? Geographical location, time, environmental factors, genetic mutation, all coming together to create a set of pressures that would only the fittest would survive in. But they're starting to reconsider that now, and think that there actually might be a will component to it, where creatures can actually create a genetic change in their instead of just being attributed chance.
Lamarckian revivalism.
Is that what it is?
Well, Lamarck had the theory just prior to Darwin that, say, a giraffe's neck would grow because they needed to eat those leaves. So it's a reversal of Darwin's theory, really. Darwin being a process of elimination. So yeah, you could call it Lamarckian. That's an interesting theory. And if there's, okay, here's my biological take, and then I'm going to let Laz tell a story. It's a question I always ask biologists, and it's what is the exact mechanism by which DNA can put instinct in our brains? Because that's like like hardcore Darwinian, like Dawkins theory, that the beaver dam is a phenotype. These behaviors exist in their brain waves patterns, right? Which seems like a bold leap to me, because I don't think we even really know how we store information in the brain. Not very well, anyway.
That's a story. That's a just so story for a materialist.
Absolutely. There must be another, to my mind, there must be another entire plane at play, a layer of material or energy or consciousness or whatever that we just cannot see or measure in that way. But we can obviously see its effects by a baby being able to suckle at a tit right out of the womb, or a deer being able to walk. That's a complicated muscle motion. I don't know that we can manipulate the genome to take away that ability, short of removing their legs.
Well, don't they try and explain that with epigenetics?
That you would absorb your mother's DNA information in the womb, but still, it doesn't explain the mechanism from how it goes from DNA to brain to thought.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Or instinct, but it could be that, well, look at consciousness. People, the materialists, they say, well, consciousness has to come from the brain, and it's not unreasonable, but if you look at the brain as like they're clearly linked, but it doesn't mean that consciousness arises in the brain. Your brain is a necessary condition, to experience, an incarnate life, but it doesn't mean that it's sufficient. I mean, look at a television, right? I can take out components and break the television set, but the signal is still not in the box. And so the materialist answer is that, well, it's in your brain. It's in the television set. The signal is in the television set. And there's just as much, in fact, compelling evidence that there is a signal of some kind that interacts with our brains, and the signal can convey information and maybe even identity.
It's all very interesting. We maybe revisit that topic, but for the moment, I want to hear from Laz. Hello, Laz. You're on the air.
Hello, all. Okay. Well, I don't have anything very intelligent to say, but I do have some stories from Cascadia, and so basically, growing up here, my mom is Irish German, and she would tell us about when we were little to keep away from, those mushroom circles you see in the fall.
Yes, fairy circles.
Yes, fairy circles. And so she told us to never ever step in those. And we're also taught to keep away from, semicircle twigs, on trails in the woods. You see these fallen trees. Oh, that's just a fallen tree, right? No, if you step under it, there's big potential to it to be a portal, and you can end up with some weird spirits in your head. And it gets into a pagan thing, sort of, but she insisted don't ever step under one of those.
And did she ever elaborate to you? Did she elaborate?
No, I think it was. I don't think she elaborated too much because she didn't want to scare us. But you can end up in a bad spot, and I've heard stories, missing people, going in the trails, and I think there's definitely a connection between these sort of things, because I've heard from experienced hikers to not go off trail, to not step under weird looking things, to trust your subconscious. Don't approach things that look interesting or weird little twigs or certain little off trails. People like to go off trail, and you see these weird little trails, and it's like, but don't do it. Don't do it unless you have a gun, unless you have a holy water, maybe something like this. It's not a good idea, and I'm speaking from experience.
What's your experience?
You run into these strange things. You hear voices behind you, or you're out there for an hour, but it feels like you're out there for 4 hours, or some things like this. Weird little idiosyncrasies.
Have you ever experienced what, like, the Norwegians or that sort of group would call, like, there's a voice that calls you to your death out in the woods, or it tries to lure you in?
Like, you hear an actual voice?
Yeah, or like very distant, like maybe like.
This is approaching skinwalker territory, but no, mainly just like thoughts that egg you on to go down a certain path, and it gets into a mythopoetic sort of territory, or go down a certain path and you lead to certain dark territory, literally. And yeah, I've heard stories from hikers talking about this sort of thing. You go off trail too long and you lead to bad things. And I was in the redwoods one day. I was there for a couple of days, and I went off trail, and I was only there for maybe a mile off trail. But I swear I was hiking for maybe half an hour, something like this. And you get lost, and maybe it's in your head, but I almost lost my eye that way, because it was on a flat plane, but suddenly I was just falling. It was very strange.
It's like did you maybe lose some time in there?
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's I've heard that connected to the fairy portals thing, the arched sticks. If you see a semicircle kind of stick, like a fallen tree, definitely don't go under that.
Well, it's interesting. Like, yeah, there's a lot of connections between UFO experiences, like abduction phenomena, Elven, Elven sort of lore and myth, and other sort of phenomena tied together. And it's sort of strange because a lot of these, like we were talking about the differences between racial mythologies and racial spiritualities and things like that.
Yeah,
And
blood memories are a part of it for sure.
yeah, and the elven, the elves are at least the most common iteration of elf lore is Northern European lore, right? And it's tied into UFO phenomenon in a lot of different ways, but the original UFO phenomena mainly happened to Europeans, European people of European descent, European diaspora. But it largely started happening also in Central and South America as well.
Right.
You didn't hear about it in Africa and Asia so much.
Right. And I have an interesting theory about this connected to R negative blood. Do you know about this?
Yeah, RH negative.
Yeah, RH negative blood. There's a weird, I think a Neolithic sort of figures, like these stone pieces with really intricate sort of carvings, and they were found in Scotland. And Scotland, obviously, Celtic people, they have RH negative blood. And RH negative blood peoples have been purported to have a higher rate of UFO abduction. And this goes back to the Enokai thing and Egyptians and all that sort of stuff. And so I have this theory that, it goes back to maybe they were abducted at higher rates and they came up with these sort of weird I don't know how to put it, blood memories or something like this, but it's just like all tied into I can't put it very well, but you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, go ahead, NP.
No, I got nothing. You go.
Well, I was going to say
Let
one
me
of the
pull up.
most
I have a note on this.
one of the most famous abduction stories was the Barney and Betty Hill abduction, and that happened in the 50s, I believe, mid to late 50s, and it was they were abducted by the Nordic tall blondes, and they were an interracial couple. It was a white woman and a black male, and under hypnosis, if you go through the wiki, it doesn't mention this, but I've read through like actual people with the full transcripts who've written about it, and one of the things that Barney Hill said was that he was under the impression that they were Nazis, and the interviewer was saying, you get the impression that they're Nazis because they're tall and blonde, and he goes, no, these are actual Nazis, like these. So that was a really weird side of the one of the first abduction phenomena that was largely popularized in the United States.
Paying the toll in ways hitherto unimagined.
Yeah, that's right, man. And it's the same with machine elves too. If you read on the internet, people of color say that the machine elves are racist towards them.
Oh, yeah,
When
but they say that about everything.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I took DMT and then the alien called me nigger, that kind of thing.
That's it, man. But I kind of
I
believe
hope it's
it.
true. Big if true. Big if true. I want to believe.
Right.
Laz, did you dig up your note?
Yeah, that the Rh negative people have a higher than average IQ, lower body temperature, higher blood pressure, and higher rate of alien abduction. And you find these weird stone balls in Scotland, and obviously they didn't have. I mean, it seems strange to have that sort of shape at that sort of time, if it's Neolithic. But I found this thing that we also have a higher pH and higher effects on electromagnetic sensitivity or radio sensitivity to this. And it's sort of like human dowsing rods. And I almost was connecting it to the lost priest tribe of Levi in a way where it's all these weird sort of sensitivities. And I've come across this in various subjects. It's strange.
Well,
Like
if you
haplogroup J1 L858 is common among the Arabian clans, and you come across this theory of like we was the real kings of Egypt thing, and that's at least in East Egypt it's prevalent there, and you find the same haplogroup around Glasgow and Belfast, and so the Celtic Rh negative blood thing, that was just very interesting to me.
another cluster of Rh negative people that the highest predominance, I think, of all is the Basque people.
Yeah,
and the
yeah.
and the people of Canarias.
Robert Seffer had a whole video about this.
Yeah.
What do you guys think of Robert Seffer?
Interesting.
Well,
yeah.
Because
His
he's
dad's
quite a
Jewish,
serious academic, is he not?
Very, very
Well,
serious.
I'm not sure how seriously he's taken, but just because of the subject matter he pursues. But he is Jewish, but he's an Iranian Jew of Iranian Jewish, Persian Jewish heritage, which is a little different for me than Ashkenazi. The Iranian Jews have lived in pretty good harmony with the Shia. Is it they're the Shia, right? The Shia Muslims
yeah.
in Iran. Yeah, for many hundreds of years without pulling the kind of chicanery that we see in other parts of the world with the Ashkenazi.
I'd be willing
I think
to,
that makes sense.
if they're a branch, if they're a family branch that predates certain behaviors, I'd be willing to give them at least a chance. But so yeah, like Seffer seems like a cool guy. He mostly deals, if I'm not mistaken, ancient, like with archaeological finds that don't fit in. Is that right?
Yeah, they don't tie into the mainstream.
Lost history
Pattern.
kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's one of the biggest champions of something that I'm actually quite pro on, and that is Western hunter-gatherer forays
Yeah.
into the Americas.
What to say?
And
very anti and out of Africa.
yeah, I'm also big on debunking out of Africa as well. But
I mean, it's
he
even been
believes that
debunked in the mainstream since the 70s, so don't waste too much here. It only exists now in popular imagination.
but Western hunter gatherers in the Americas, like 12,000 years BPE, he figures that they came over in sealskin boats following seals during the Younger Dryas, and during the Younger Dryas, and you can see a lot of echoes of Western European culture in the Americas after that period. Like you can see there's a mound culture, for example, the swastika in the eastern and south eastern America and southwestern America. You can see different burial rituals than the other native tribes employed. You can find copper working and all kinds of different things that are sort of synonymous with the technological advances that were that happened later on in Europe as well, like around um, and it's interesting that if Western hunter gatherers had migrated here and had a separate branch that lived here for a long time, but were eventually probably subsumed by the natives, if not wiped out, then that these advances and different cultural customs sort of were paralleled in eastern United States and eastern Canada as well as Western Europe. It's quite fascinating, actually. Oh, woven fabrics too is another strong indicator that they weren't the purely Native American cultures.
Did you mention the mined out copper beneath Great Lakes?
Yeah. Copper smelting and copper working, and that extends all the way across the north of the Gulf of Mexico as well.
What do
What
you
was
think
that
of
last bit about Eastern Canada?
I'm sorry?
What was the last bit about Eastern Canada? I was curious.
Oh, just that's probably would be the range of intermixing between Western hunter-gatherers and native tribes. Like when they eventually became subsumed, it would be like when the Europeans came, they encountered what they called the civilized tribes, right? And they were all on the east coast of the United States as
Like the
well.
Iroquois, for example,
and the
maybe?
Huron? Yep.
Yeah, the Cherokee. I'm pretty sure Chippewa, Onondaga.
Mm-hmm.
What do you guys think of the giants of North America theory?
That's another interesting subject as well.
Hopi have a very interesting thing with giant red-headed giants, and that goes back to my love for the RH negative theory with the Nephilim and everything like that. I think it is very intriguing because there's evidence that the Smithsonian they came in, and I'm sure you both know about this, the Smithsonian covering up the giant skeletons they have and destroying them, and lots of witnesses to this. But clearly that goes against the theory of evolution, so you can't have that.
Well, the Inuit also have legends of encountering a tall, red-headed race when they first arrived in the Americas, and they said that they were so docile and passive that they were able to easily wipe them out.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. So they're passive. They're pacifist.
I don't know. They were definitely not as aggressive and warlike as the Inuit, who were much smaller in stature than they were. So I guess they would have had to be.
There's lots of hilarious stories about the Skraeling from Greenland. They were such tricksters. They just go bang on your tent at night and stuff, just freaking out the Vikings.
This makes me think about how many African countries, they have, they believe red-headed people are like witches or demonic people. You know, what's maybe beautiful to us, but it's completely disgusting to them. And they even like to eat red-headed people, and witches will craft up spells and potions and stuff like this.
There's a Little Mermaid joke
people
in here somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely, yeah. And the people of the Canary Islands, when the Spanish encountered them, were massive red-headed people. You could call, I guess they would definitely could be giants to like Spanish people, right? And the Portuguese. But they were Stone Age technologically, comparatively, and were easily also taken out.
It's awesome. Well, I just got a nice viewer mail from our buddy John out in Alberta, and he's driving He's driving around in Alberta, and he needs us to keep it on till he gets home. So we better keep talking here. He won't call in though, because his cell coverage is cutting in and out. I hope he gets abducted and calls it in though. Like, it would be very convenient to our program if you could do that, John.
Don't you worry. I'm
Well,
good at it.
the thing about the Western hunter gatherer in America, um, is, you know, besides the evidence of different napping technologies, different grave goods, different burial customs, woven fabrics, the swastika, all these different smelting copper, et cetera, they actually did genetic testing on them, and the profile that came back was distinctly European, like distinctly European in nature.
We was giants.
Yeah, we was giants.
Well, we got another caller here. Or we'll let him in on this topic, or he can tell us something new. Hello, Fim. YMM. You're on the air.
Hey, fellas. How's it going tonight?
Great. Where are you calling from, roughly?
Ontario.
Nice. You got a story? Oh, good. I hear you. Is that you cracking a drink? Very good. What's on your mind here? You got a good story for us?
Do you want to keep on the paranormal aspect of it, or
Absolutely.
Whatever you like.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I got a few, I suppose. The weirdest. This is more like a phenomenon or something. The coolest one I saw was like a UFO. I don't want to get into aliens, but the sheer size of it behind the moon, or behind the clouds, I could see it just sitting there. And by the time I went to hit my wife at the time, girlfriend at the time.
By the time you went to hit her, did you say? You are
yeah,
our
I
guy.
went like.
Yeah, I endorse.
I saw this thing up there, right? And it was it wasn't a full moon, but it was like basically a full moon. And it was just sitting there. And I go to smack her, like right in the face. No, I'm just joking. Like, I go to smack her, like, hey, look, like, what the fuck? And while I was doing it, this thing shot across the sky and then just stopped again. Of course, I hit her. Of course she looks at me instead of looking exactly where I was telling her to look with my mind. And by the time she looked up, it just did the same thing right across, and it was just gone.
And did you get a sensation of
huge,
its shape?
by the way. It was like a big glowing orb, but it was big. The best way I can describe it is like, the moon's up there, you make a fist, right? Let's say that's the moon size. You got the like all-seeing eye thing going on with your hand. And it was about the size of your pinky nail up to that. So it was fairly big, and it was like right around the cloud height. It was bizarre. It was bizarre, and I don't know what it was. I'm not willing to say aliens, but I'm not really into that stuff. But it was bizarre. That's my story.
Did you have any emotional sensation to it? Was it accompanied by any noise or feelings of dread or anything like this?
No. More shock, more disappointment that she didn't see it, to be honest, because I was just sitting there like a fucking idiot.
Whamming moment.
Oh, sorry. I don't know if I can
No,
swear.
yeah, swear away.
Okay. But
it
was mostly shock. Yeah, it was mostly like, what the fuck was that? I don't know. Weird.
Yeah, I had the same thing when I was the first one to see strange lights out in our backyard here on the West Coast, and the girlfriend wouldn't believe it, the wife wouldn't believe it, you know. So I would try and get her to come out and have a look when I would see one of these things, but obviously by the time she would get out there, it would often be gone, you know. So that's when when we started sleeping out, because I was like, okay, I have a feeling this weekend, or something's gonna happen, and that's when I was able to actually get her to key into it and see the same thing I was seeing, and she
It was
was like
over
a
Lake Simcoe. Sorry, I
She-
just wanted to.
oh, that's okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Over Lake Simcoe. if that helps. Yeah. Anyway. Sorry about that.
Oh, not at all. I used to go up to the fair, the Simcoe Fall Fair, every fall when I was a kid.
Was that what part of the province is that in?
South central, pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
So is, if I remember correctly.
It's Ontario area.
Good enough. Good enough. Ah, all right. Well, did you have any other paranormal experiences there?
Allegedly.
Any other paranormal experiences, Fim? Or anything else on your mind?
Okay, can I tell?
Yep.
Can I tell one more good one?
Yeah, please do.
So there's this is more on the ghost side. This place I worked at, the restaurant, it's really old. It's protected under the Heritage Act of
Historical building?
1972. Yeah, whatever. But there's a guy that lives there, and he lived there for a very long time. I think he was like 92 at the time, and he was having a birthday. They took a picture. I'm just rushing through it. They took a picture of him, right? And then they brought the pictures back to the restaurant after. It's very wholesome restaurant. It's like kind of imagine a Cheers. It's literally like a Cheers. The wood everywhere. Everyone knows each other's name. It was fucking awesome, actually. It was kind of cute. Classic Canadian bar, but before everything went to shit. But they took a picture of the old man. He had his friends next to him, and there was clearly a figure of a woman behind him, and you could see that it was a woman with an old-fashioned dress that puffed up at the front a little bit, and then it had I forget the word for it, the big thing at the back. You could see her hair was curled. She had an old-fashioned thing, like it was detailed, dude. I still remember it to this day. She had glasses on. You could tell that she was in front of the bar that was behind him, but she was behind him. You know what I mean? She was in between the two. And it was a creepy thing. And that restaurant, oh my God. I worked there when I was younger, right? You would hear the weirdest things, door slamming, all sorts of stuff, man. And it had like 4 basements. It was so weird. It's an old building, right? But I'll give you that. That's my story there.
That's awesome. Eald, do you have any thoughts on ghosts?
Not really, like my mom and her generation, they were totally big on that stuff. Like
Nope, you're starting to get in.
Nope.
Someone's got. I think Tom, you got some feedback coming through.
like maybe they were into all kinds of that stuff like table tipping. You ever hear of that sort of thing?
No.
Where they would like, it's, I think it was a tradition from the old country where they would have place their hands on the table and sort of move the top of the table on one leg or whatever, and apparently weird shit would happen, like the table would start moving on its own and stuff. They seances and stuff like that. I never really paid attention to much of that sort of stuff, but probably only because I never really had that much experience with it. I think people get fascinated by what they encounter, more than anything.
Yeah, absolutely. Those are extremely inexplicable. Those ghost hunting shows are no help at all either. Oh, we got.
Yeah, they kind of cheapen the whole thing, eh?
Yeah. We've got one of the best guys online in our chat right now, Audio Nerd. I'm going to make him talk whether he likes it or not. Audio Nerd, can you hear?
I can hear. Can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear.
Oh,
You-
good.
You got a paranormal experience to share with us.
Well, a brief one, and really not all that great, but just out at the beach the other day, and it was broad daylight, and there was just a white, inexplicable object darting around the sky. I don't know what it was, but more than that, I wanted to talk about. Have you guys heard of the Nimitz encounters?
No. Well, I mean, I'm sure Eald has, but pretend I haven't.
Okay, well, basically there was a bunch of there was a Navy exercise off the coast of California. I want to say, whoever knows more about this, feel free to correct me. I want to say it was like 2008 or something, and Navy exercise with a whole bunch of ships, and many of the sailors all reported the same story, which was basically they were surrounded by these white tic tac objects, as they described them, because they were shaped, like a tic tac, and they would dart around and do all sorts of insane behavior. And this happened over several days, and there's all sorts of guys who were on those ships who report the same story, and they saw them through binoculars, and they also showed up on radar and everything. So it's when I first heard about it, I got really interested in it, because I was like, okay, there's got to be some sort of explanation for this. Why was the Navy getting surrounded by literally hundreds of UFOs? So at first you would think, okay, well, maybe this is some sort of gay op to just convince the population that there's UFOs, sort of a lead up to Project Bluebeam or whatever. But if you go and listen to interviews with a lot of the sailors, I don't get that vibe from it. The stories just are too, like liars. They were genuine U.S. military guys that saw what they saw, as far as I can tell. We're very, very good actors. But I kind of ruled that out. But the movements they described are completely inexplicable by any tech that any military has ever exposed. And in fact, it's so far beyond any tech that anybody has exposed that if you had craft like these, you could have easily taken over the world in the matter of hours. It'd be like giving Napoleon a fleet of F-16s. Basically, they're so advanced beyond anything humans have done in the way they can move. They accelerate at at a speed that would just kill the pilot, sort of thing. But
Now, this is actually a quite well-known story in the UFO circles. We have a few people chiming in. We have M talking about the book UFO Deception in the comments here. She's saying,
okay,
she's saying they were first cited by Commander Craver of the Black Aces. Down
okay,
in the Telegram chat here, Tom's telling us
okay.
they were part of an unusual release of sighting data that was originally suppressed or denied. Oh, Tom's taken off. Good night, Tom. And then, Eald, what do you know about these? Okay. Eald probably went for a piss. So we're on.
I-
There he
I-
is. There he is.
I actually don't know much actually about the Tic Tac encounters.
Okay.
I heard one theory, which was that they were projections, like a laser
That's-
pointer.
Yeah, I think that's because I told you that.
Oh, it could be.
So that's where I was going with this. Is I dug and dug and tried to figure out what was going on here, because the conclusions that I eventually came to were basically it's a very, very complicated and expensive intelligence agency GAOP that just doesn't seem like something they would endeavor to do, because it doesn't bear much fruit from anything I can see. I don't see why they would go to all the work of making hundreds of Navy guys lie about these. And I mean, maybe. So that's one option. Option two is, okay, it's actually aliens. But I stumbled onto someone who had a very interesting theory about it that I think might explain, not all, but many UFO sightings. He thought the military had developed technology where, using satellites, they could project images, holograms in the sky, and people instantly say, oh, okay, yeah, but that doesn't show up on radar. But people have demonstrated tech that sort of, I don't understand exactly how it works, but basically it excites the air molecules around this projection in such a way that it would appear as an object on radar. So
That
that's just,
sounds almost as wonky as just a normal UFO theory. Like there's that itself
does
would be
it though?
crazy technology.
because wouldn't it be useful and not as hard to come up with and execute? Supposing you were at war with the Chinese and you had such a technology, you could just make them, you could trip out all their radar on all their Navy ships.
Right, it would make
completely
radar
by
bunk.
making them think they were, yeah, right. So it's just a theory. It's just something I thought I'd throw out there.
No, it's interesting.
Food for thought, that's all. I don't claim to know one way or the other. I'm not married to this theory, but
Anyone who claims to know, you'd be suspect of them immediately. I don't think
For sure.
anybody knows. Nobody knows. It's all speculation.
Actually, since I've got Audio Nerd here, I've got a paranormal experience to share, but it's more of almost like a religious experience thing. And Audio Nerd was there and can corroborate it. But
okay.
we were out at the farm. This is about 15 years ago, and we were watching some movie, and we were in like a weird time where we were like hermits renovating this old farm. And
I'm there right now.
oh,
I'm there right now, and there's nobody else here. I'm the only person for 2 miles in any direction. It's very strange listening to this sort of podcast. Very spooky.
Nice. Well, don't.
Anyhow,
You should go to the valley that cannot be seen from here.
Yeah, in the dark.
Yeah,
I'll pass.
right
Thanks.
past the sand quarry. But anyway, so we it was a autumn day, I think, and we went out in the evening, and there's like suddenly the light turned like this golden we'd never seen, and we were both like startled by this.
Yeah.
Like I don't know what to call it. It was like we were on some beautiful acid trip, but we hadn't done shit. Probably had a few beers.
At most, yeah. Yeah, I remember that.
I've never been able to explain that or recreate it in any way either.
I had a sort of similar experience like about 15 years ago. I was on my couch, and we lived right in this harbor, right on the ocean. Like I was overlooking a government wharf that was just full of sailboats and fishing boats and stuff. And I forget why, but I was sitting on the couch, and I was praying really hard. I was in a prayer, sort of praying hard about something. And I opened my eyes, and the whole room sort of was filled with this golden light. Like usually we'd have some beautiful light sort of coming off the bay reflected into our picture window down there, but this was an especially golden light, and the whole room started to smell like the most amazing flowers you'd ever smelled in your life. Just like bouquets, like the whole room was filled with
Yes.
bouquets of
This
flowers.
sounds like a similar experience. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely wild.
What do you attribute this to?
I have no idea really, you know. I've never really been a strong person of faith, you know, but there's been times in my life where I've like turned to prayer, you know, for this reason or that. Um, and I don't even remember what I was praying about. I seem to recall thinking I was that when I was relaying the story to my wife, that I was telling her that I had my grandmother in mind, you know, when I was praying. And so, yeah, I like to think that maybe she was involved somehow. It was a outreach from her in some way.
Okay.
Beautiful.
That is really nice. Fim has a sort of religious experience to add on to this as well.
Sure, I'll check out.
Oh, okay. We're going to be wrapping up the stream pretty soon. I'd like to do another one of these. I think this one was
This
well
is really
received.
great. I've been really enjoying it.
Yeah, the replay will be available on YouTube. And we'll probably do another one. I don't think we'll be ongoing, but we'll do maybe one or two more. And people keep.
Awesome.
We're kind of down on viewers right now, but if anyone can, if you guys can all like and share it and spread the word and all that, that'd be great. We'll try and market it a little better next time too, but I'm pleased enough with the turnout, and we had lots of callers, lots of good stories. So all in all, very good. Let's wrap it up with let's wrap it up
I'd
with
love
Fim's
to
religious experience.
Hopefully Tom Thumb can come back. I want to put that out
Yeah,
there.
he had some fascinating insights.
Super more knowledgeable than either one of us, I think, on all of these topics.
Yeah, definitely an interesting show, guys. I'll definitely share it around and come back.
Awesome.
But well, it's interesting to just talk about, right?
Mhm.
Gets the conversation going too, and certain ideas. But so I had a interesting one when I was growing up. I grew up I went to Catholic elementary school and whatnot, and we had a lot of crosses in the house. Not like an absurd amount. We weren't like, my parents weren't hardcore religious. It was my grandparents were more so, but not even that hardcore. But anyway, it was just a symbol that we had up. And it was an interesting time in my life looking back on it. It was at a crossroads in a manner, and maybe I didn't respond appropriately. But there was a rattling in my room. I'll just cut to it. There's a rattling in my room, and I don't understand what it's coming from. And I'm looking around. I searched my room for about 30 minutes, and I couldn't find it. And I wasn't on drugs or anything. It wasn't like on heavy duty drugs. It wasn't an illusion, I'm pretty sure. But so I ended up standing on my bed because it felt like it was coming from the roof, and I realized it's coming from the wall. I put my ear up to the wall, and then I go across the wall, and it's coming from the crucifix I have on my wall with Jesus on it. And I look at it, and I'm like, no way, like. And then I just put my finger on it, and it stopped. And I just it was just a bizarre experience for me. And then obviously, and I remember I went outside in the backyard. I looked down up the road, like, of the neighbors. No construction. I looked out front, no construction. I went downstairs. And yeah, it was just a bizarre experience. I thought it was funny.
Is very bizarre.
Yeah.
It turns out actually we have one more caller that I'd love to talk to. I haven't talked to her in a dog's age. Em, are you actually Keck?
No.
No?
It's not
Okay.
me.
Okay. We'll give her just a minute here.
I've heard stories like that before with crucifixes. Um, I heard this one guy I knew him named Marcus. He lived on the Gulf Islands out here in British Columbia, and he said he had a crucifix that he couldn't get to stay on the wall. He said that he would put it on the wall and he would come and he would find it on the counter, like it had jumped off the wall. And he said he never saw it fall, but he would go out and he would come back. He would put the nail on a 45-degree angle so that because it had one of those, triangle loop hangers that a lot of things do, and then to hang wall hangings. And he said he would put like an absurd angle on it to keep the crucifix on the wall, and he would come back to his home and find the crucifix on the floor, or find the crucifix on wherever he'd hung it, uh, had come off the wall. And so I never knew what to make of the story. It's like obviously like another one of those things that seeing is believing. It's interesting though.
Mm-hmm.
What bugs me the most about that story I told is that I took the cross off the wall, and I still have crosses, but I don't put them on the wall anymore. And I do wonder if that was a bad move. But yeah, it's one of those things.
M is untangling her earbuds as we speak, I am told. So we will wait for her. She has, I think, a variety of good stories. And I think we're going to do this program again. We'll catch more people's stories next time, but we'll catch this one tonight.
Well, when me and NP were talking about doing this, he was like, well, you got a bag full of stories that we can draw on if nobody, wants to talk or call in or whatever. And I didn't even get to hardly any of them, honestly. Like not the death blow ones anyway. Which is great, man. I'm glad so many people called in. I'm glad so many people had interesting insights and stories to tell themselves. That's awesome.
Awesome.
You guys trying to tell me that you actually let women talk here? That's fucked up.
Yeah, this isn't the boxing club. This is everyone can participate in this nice
I'm
late
unsubbing.
night social activity. Yeah. I'm not even shocked. Hello, M. Oh, M.
Oops, I was on mute. Hello.
There you are. How are you?
Hello. I'm all right. I sound a little sick today. I think it's valley fever because it's been raining out here in the Southwest, but we ball. I'm doing this out of charity. I'll let you know, for your friend who's driving right now.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
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 I
John
ran all
will
the way up to my
appreciate
room to get away from the noise. But yeah, I'm here with some stories from Algonquin. Actually, only two really, but the first one came from, you guys know Dave Politis, I assume, right?
Yeah,
The
I know
missing
Dave.
411 guy. Yeah, so
Yeah.
he was reading some mail from a couple in Alliston, and I remember I was looking for the actual video earlier, but I couldn't find it. They had experienced something on Mizzy Lake Trail in Algonquin Park, and that's like one of the really long ones. It's about 6 hours if you do it for, I don't know, you make it a day trip and you take your time. It's quite long. So this couple, who were, again, very experienced, they were of, I'm not sure about German descent, but they were white. And I think we were talking about how that's one of the common case points. They were, doing their little jaunt and somehow got separated. And the wife had been way up ahead on the trail. And the husband was, I don't know, a few hundred meters behind her. And, he started panicking after a bit because he was calling her name. He couldn't hear anything. Ooh, sorry. And she, was just dead quiet, nothing. And for about 45 minutes, he ran up ahead. He was looking for her. He started looking off the trails, nothing. And he was about to cut through to the highway because he'd done this before. He knew the area, and call for help. and, try to get signal on his phone or something. And he runs into her, and she's behind him. She's like, I don't know, all of a sudden, just behind him, she's like, "Where were you?" He's like, "I don't know, where were you?" And somehow they had gotten separated when she was way up ahead, and she must have lapped him on the 6-hour trail and showed up behind him, except she never, went off the trail or, went back around to the trailhead. She had just gone straight, you know what I mean? So that's one of those cases where it's like, are they retarded or, is there a portal? You know what I mean? I enjoy those. You never know. Yeah, it's okay, talk.
Could very
Whoever
well
just-
be, or could be another question of lost time. Such a common
Yeah.
phenomena in the woods.
I hear about that a lot, and actually where I am now, we moved away, unfortunately. I was, born and raised in Southern Ontario, and my dad was just sick of it, in the last year. And so now we're in Arizona, and I live quite near, without doxing too much, one of the creepier mountain ranges, and there are quite a few stories about vortexes, prospectors going crazy, things like this, So I'm excited to go check them out, hopefully soon.
Yeah, one of the topics we haven't touched on too much tonight is a topic that I research quite a bit. I live on Vancouver Island, and Sasquatch is a big topic out here among people who are interested in uh, cryptids, and among the Native American people as well. And I've read quite a few really good books on it, and watching the Missing 411 series that came out. Um, I think it's on Amazon. You can watch them, a couple of them anyway. Some of the stories are just absolutely mind blowing. Like people who are experienced in the woods, armed, um, know the area, with lots of provisions and supplies, just stripping down their clothes, and like they're in the middle of winter, and leaving boots and clothes neatly stacked in a place, and footprints disappearing, and like being in an area where you couldn't possibly go missing in a hunting party, and people just absolutely disappearing without a trace, or if there is a trace, it's like this oddly configured set of garments and equipment and stuff. It's a really interesting phenomenon for sure.
Yeah, I know, BC is another cluster. He has, like, an entire map just dedicated to the province, and, specifically Strathcona, which is, I don't know if you've ever been. I never, made it out there. I visited a couple times, and, it's great. I wish I could, go back, but Strathcona and, I can't remember the other ones. They were just massive clusters of people going missing, and of course, they're, the more ambitious ones who know the area or grew up there, and, yeah, just all of a sudden, nothing, and maybe they'll find a tooth a year later on a spot that's already been combed a million times.
I lived on the Gulf Islands, and I had a friend, Brian. He was a really, really sweet guy. Absolutely like a gem of an individual. Everybody loved this guy. And he started losing his mind a little bit. And uh, one day people saw him walking down the highway with no shoes on, and he had been walking for a long time. Apparently, they said people who stopped to talk to him said his feet were just black, and then he was never seen again. Never, like, disappeared completely without a trace. Like it's almost Salt Spring's not a very big island. It's like 80 square kilometers or something. So hunters, somebody would have stumbled upon him. Um, in that small of a space, but he disappeared completely. Even if he had have gone into the ocean and drowned, usually the bodies turn up, but in a lot of areas in BC, it's not inconceivable to go missing. Like um you'll get stretches like between Hope and Osoyoos where it's like nothing but bush for like 500 kilometers, but pretty much, mountainous terrain, absolutely rugged terrain that can be unforgiving to someone who's not experienced in the mountains.
That's very good stuff. Em, come back next week. and tell us some more spooky
I
stories.
will,
Good,
for
good.
sure.
You have the most pleasant voice of any of our callers tonight, so you win that prize.
Oh, thank you.
I was
Wow,
gonna
I'm
say the
offended.
same thing.
Maybe you should let women on
Fucking
your show more.
$800 microphone for nothing. I see how it is.
Klein, actually, you do have some slick, buttery tones going there too.
Oh no. You made your piece. I get it.
I got my preferences. I'm not gonna lie. Hey T, I see you there. Did you want to tell a story tonight, or just say hello?
Yeah, hey guys. Actually, I have a few really good stories because I used to live in a haunted house, but I won't tell them tonight. I'll tell them the next time.
Are you going to be
across from a?
Perfect. Are you going to be
Can you hear
available
me?
next week around this time?
Yeah. I'll just shoot me a text and I'll come on.
Absolutely.
It was a funeral parlor.
Oh.
The house was about 160 years old.
Well, that's a great teaser for next week. Yeah, we'd love to hear about that.
Yeah, no, there's some good ones. There's some, and I have a story relayed by an exorcist who lived in Africa, and he had some wild stories.
Awesome.
I bet.
We're looking forward
That's
to that.
awesome.
Yeah.
That and
There's
much...
a reason it's called the Dark Continent.
There's a couple of reasons.
Yeah. Okay, buddy.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.
Well, that's great. Hoping everyone has a good night. Hoping everyone racks their brains and thinks of some more good stories for us. I'm hoping you all share this. Like and subscribe to The Great White North. This show I do with Charles every week, except we're on a small hiatus. Dealing with metapolitics and Canadian nationalism primarily. You can follow Eald on Telegram, I think. Find him there. Or do you have any other projects you want to shout out there?
Not really, man. I mean, people probably don't know me as Eald anymore. I go by the handle negative Bodhi image,
Right.
and you can find me on Telegram, shit posting regularly.
Awesome. Yeah. All right. Well, we'll be back next week because I think this went really good. Take care, everybody.